Hi guys, Anthony Peluso here, CEO and founder of Wealth for Life, and welcome to 2023. What are we, two months in? And already it's been a very, very interesting year if you're a property investor. So what we're going to talk about tonight is why Australians are still choosing to invest in property in 2023. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, all the talk at the moment is about interest rates. So we're certainly going to cover off on interest rates and inflation and all the things making headlines at the start of 2023. Interest rates are continuing to increase. How long for? Who knows? Okay. The reason behind the push of interest rates going up is to curb inflation. So a better way to actually put this is that when inflation starts to drop, you'll start to see interest rates follow as well. So everybody out there right now has their own viewpoint and prediction on what interest rates are going to do in 2023. I'll give you my understanding and what I can read moving forward. But the current cash rate as it stands, here we are at the end of Feb 2023, is 3.35%. Okay. Now again, most of this is being driven by inflation, which is currently sitting at 7.8%. So the Reserve Bank of Australia have got a tough job. How do they get inflation down and not send the country into a recession by continuing to increase interest rates? Okay, now you need to know how to work with the interest rates, because for owner-occupiers, generally speaking, interest rates going up put a lot of pressure on homeowners. For investors, it's a different story. Okay, for investors, when interest rates go up, so do rents. And in some cases, so do their tax deductions or what they get back at tax time. The way I see interest rates right now is I think there'll be a little bit more pain for the next few months, okay? Maybe 2 or 3 interest rate rises more. But I think the overriding factor here that'll bring inflation crumbling is when mortgages that are on fixed rates right now come off fixed rates, and people all of a sudden realise that their repayments are 3 times more, okay? That'll curb spending, inflation, and you'll start to see a decline in interest rates. So towards the middle end of this year, maybe even the start of 2024, I think we're going to see interest rates start to drop, okay? Based on what I'm reading into the market, and you've got to take a lot more into it than just interest rates, okay? What's going on around the world and how that, because that plays a really big part in what our money markets do here in Australia. Now, I don't think our government wants to send the country into recession, okay? But it's also got a very challenging few months ahead of it right now, okay? It's a very delicate lever that they have to play with regards to interest rates and inflation and still keeping our economy buoyant. Mortgage repayments right now for owner-occupiers are skyrocketing. I get that. And, we're going to give you some solutions around that as we move on. A property price is really falling. Now, I'm in this real estate space. I have been for a long time. One thing I'll tell you, great real estate, bulletproof real estate, very rarely does it drop in value, okay? There are specific pockets of Victoria and Melbourne where real estate, I've got clients that are trying to buy their own home. They can't get in. They're waiting for a bargain. They ain't seeing one, So you've got markets within markets. But not every part of Melbourne or Sydney or parts of Australia do you have falling real estate prices. Okay, that's inaccurate. The media will lead you to believe that the market's crashing, and you hear these outlandish statements of property prices dropping by 20%. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it in the valuations that our clients are getting on their properties. I'm not seeing it in too many places, okay? Let's put some things into perspective. Only 30% of homeowners actually have a mortgage. 31% of Australians actually don't have a mortgage on their home. Okay, so it's not as much of a bloodbath out there as the media would make you believe. Okay, yeah, interest rates increasing with cost of living going up. Sure, it's putting a lot of pressure on families. I get that, but it's never as bad as what you hear out in the media. Okay, we aren't seeing property prices falling the way the media tells you. The rental market is booming. That's a fact. Okay. Again, I've got clients that are looking to rent property in certain parts of Melbourne right now that can't get into the market. They can't even get to the open for inspection because the property's already rented out. That's how hot the market is. But is that the case in every area of Melbourne and Sydney? Of course not. So there are markets within markets. So to make a blanket statement, I should say that the market is falling and property prices are falling and rents are skyrocketing everywhere is not correct. Okay. As I said earlier on, there's about $470 billion worth of fixed rate mortgages that are going to be ending in 2023. People are all of a sudden going to come off 2%, 3% fixed interest rates and jump into 6% interest rates. And that's going to hurt a lot of people. But what the media also won't tell you is that a lot of people have planned for this and are preparing for this and have put buffers in place to handle this. Okay, but I think that'll stop a lot of consumer spending, and that'll be the catalyst that the RBA needs to actually start pulling interest rates back. Now, amongst all of this negativity that's out there right now, one thing to remember and one thing to look at is real estate always has been a sound, dependable investment vehicle that's created a lot of wealth for a lot of people all over the world. And I don't see that changing. So it's important that we don't get caught up in all this pessimistic and negativity out there, and that we can see the forest through the trees, that real estate still is a very, very sound wealth creation tool and investment vehicle. So when it comes to creating wealth, what do we look at, right? There's really only 6 ways to create wealth, okay? And working 9 to 5 or just working 9 to 5 isn't one of them. So you guys have heard me say this before. What are the 6 ways to create wealth? Number 1, you can win Tats Lotto, okay? Now, if you're holding out for that card, you'll probably be waiting a long time, all right? Number 2, you marry into money. There are people that have done that, that do that. Good luck to them. Number 3, you become a superstar. Now, there's a lot of superstars out there that do very, very well financially, all right? Number 4, start your own business. Now, we're getting into areas where more people can actually partake in, right? So starting your own business, a really good way to create wealth, okay? Number 5, invest in the stock market. Now, a lot of people don't understand or don't like, I should say, the stock market. It's probably because they don't understand it. One of the wealthiest investors in the world, one of the richest people in the world, Warren Buffett, is a share trader. He buys stock. He buys into companies that are undervalued, and he can see the future value that these companies are going to create, and that's how he's made his money. And number 6, of course, investing in real estate. All right? So real estate's been a sound vehicle for a lot of Australians for so many years, and that's why I think 1 in 5 people are actually dabbling in real estate investment. All right? So when we talk about creating wealth, one of the things that we first need to do is define what we mean by wealth, okay? Because you can't achieve something if you don't understand it. So what does wealth mean for you? Now, take some time to think about this. What does it actually mean for you? Because what it means for you will be different to what it means to your friend or to your neighbour or to your work colleague or to your kids or to your parents. But it's got to make sense for you, or else you're never going to achieve something that you don't understand. Here are 2 analogies, or here are 2 definitions I'll give you when it comes to creating wealth. Number 1, how many days, weeks, months, or years could I live to the level of my dreams if I was to stop working? Right? Because if you're working, you don't really have wealth because you're tied to a job. Now forget about whether you like the job or not, or you love what you do, right? I hope you love what you do. But you've got to have your definition of wealth. Okay, and if you were to stop working, how many months, days, years could you live to the level of your dreams before you had to go back into the workforce? Another definition, this is one I like because it gets people to really confront this subject. if I was to stop working today, how long would it take before I ran out of money? I'm going to say that again. If I was to stop working today, if you were to stop working today, how long would it take before you ran out of money? Now, here's something scary. The average Australian has just under 3 months' worth of reserves or savings available to them before they run out of money. So if you want to know how well you're doing financially, ask yourself one of those two questions, right? Or look at those two definitions. If I was to stop working today, how long would it take before I ran out of money? That'll tell you how wealthy you are. Now, here's the thing. 94% of all people living in Australia live well below the poverty line by the time they retire. So if you were to walk past 94 people, say you were going down, I don't know, Burke Street or Pitt Street in Sydney, and you walk past 100 people, 94 of them would be struggling financially by the time they reached retirement age. Now, why is there such a high percentage of people that struggle financially when they stop working or when they get to retirement age? It is quite simple. These people basically failed to plan. Okay, like planning, looking at this subject when younger in life was not a priority. Yet here they are approaching retirement age or the age, and listen guys, the age of 60 comes really, really quickly, a lot faster than people think. And there's no point trying to figure this out and make this right when you start approaching 60, because there's not a lot left you can do. Does that make sense? There's not a lot left. There's not a lot left that you can actually do. Now, for a lot of people, they actually can't afford to stop working. Now, this is quite sad because a lot of people never plan to work past 60 or 65, right? But they actually can't afford to stop working because they did not plan for this time in their life, right? So planning is a very, very, very important part to wealth creation. And the sooner you can plan, the better chance you have of ending up where you want to get to, whether it's when you get to 45, 55, or 65, all right? Now, here's most people's idea of, saving for their financial future, all right? This is about as far as most people think, right? Earn an income, pay taxes, cover expenses, and save what's left. In most economies and in most, throughout most of people's lives, there's really not a lot of money left over, okay? This system of working 9 to 5, paying taxes, covering expenses, and trying to save what's left over, it doesn't work. It never has worked, it never will work, okay? The cost of living continues to increase far, far greater than people's salaries. So there's got to be another way. I mean, how many people do you know that have followed this system of working 9 to 5 and then have retired on $100,000 and $150,000 a year passive income for the rest of their lives? This is something you need to look at because there's too many people right now that are driving blindly, right? Because life's good right now. When you're working and money's coming in and you're going out and having dinners and you've got a social life and you're seeing friends and you can buy the nice car and go to those nice places and take those nice holidays, that's great. That's fantastic. But it gives us a false sense of security to some degree because for you to maintain that lifestyle, you have to keep working, right? That's the way you bring in money, is to work. I work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. In exchange, my boss pays me money. But what happens when you can no longer work? Right? What happens when you're replaced, right, by another colleague or by technology or by, there's so many technologies coming out right now where you're replaced for somebody who can do it cheaper. What happens to you then? What have you got to fall back on? Now, a lot of us, when we get older, no matter whether we love our jobs or not, our bodies or our minds will say, hey, buddy, I've had enough of this game. I've been doing it for 40, 45 years. I want a break. And sometimes you actually even have no say in whether you want to continue to work or not. The body shuts down, the mind shuts down, or it deteriorates and you've got to cut back your hours. What do you have in place to support you at that point in time? And this is the biggest fundamental mistake that Australians make. It's that, we live in a society, in a country, that, it's like, she'll be right, mate. Somehow this will all take care of itself. I don't know how, but it's like they've got an angel on their shoulders that's just going to magically just drop wealth into their lap. Guys, I'm here to tell you it does not work like that. You need to pay attention right now because it's probably later than you actually think. Okay, when it comes to creating wealth, if you don't like risk, you better love time. Right? It's going to take a long time. Okay, because a lot of us, we don't like risk. We're risk averse. Right? So if you want low risk, right, there's no such thing as no risk. But if you want low risk, you've got to be prepared to stay in the game for quite some time. On the other hand, if you love risk and you've got a strong appetite for risk, you may be able to achieve what you want in a much shorter time frame. All right, but that comes down to your risk profile. So where will you be at the age of 65? Now you can get a lot of this information from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, but here are the stats. 54% of people at the age of 65 will be living on Social Security. They'll need to depend on the government to fund whatever lifestyle they have. Okay? That's 54% of Australians. 24% will be deceased. Okay? 16% still have to work. So that leaves you with 94% of Australians that will never be financially independent or wealthy. That's left to just the 6% of Australians that will be financially independent and wealthy. So as you can see, if you keep going down this path, whilst things may look rosy for you right now, right, because you're so busy working and then spending and you're doing it every week and every month and every year, as you get older, you run the risk of this all backfiring on you. Okay, it doesn't matter how great you are at your job. Okay, you've got a body that you've got to drag around, you've got a mind that you've got to keep sharp, and in the background there, you've got technology and things like artificial intelligence and offshore employment that where they can do it faster, cheaper, and that creates a huge risk for you, who's sitting there right now depending on nothing more than their 9-to-5 income. You've got to look at other income streams. Not because I told you so, but for your own sake, for your sake, for your partner's sake, for your family's sake. Okay? Now, the first thing when it comes to creating wealth is you need to work out how much you're going to need. Right? So you've actually got to sit down and do the maths. Right? How do you do this? Well, look at what you want to do when you stop working. When you've got an extra 8, 10, 12 hours a day, how are you going to spend that time? And what money are you going to need to live that lifestyle? So, you could say to yourself, well, when I stop working, I want to be able to travel twice a year. Great. Listen, I was reading this article only on the weekend where I think it was the financialsamurai.com. They did a story on a couple that were both lawyers, making $250,000 a year each. And at the end of it all, that's $500,000 a year in America. At the end of it all, they were left with only $7,500 in their bank account after going through it for 12 months on $500,000 a year. So you really need to have a look at what kind of lifestyle you want to have when you stop when you stop working, and what are you going to need to fund that? All right, so think about your desired income, right? Then have a look at it and say, hey, are you getting a pay rise each year, right? And what does that actually matter anyway? And how does that help you? I'm sure all of us are disappointed when you get a pay rise and then you find out, damn it, half of it goes in tax anyway, right? So getting a pay rise is good, but again, you're having to work for that money. The name of the game is to get money to work for you. We have to flip this, right? You work for money right now. I know you guys get this, right? And it's like, duh, I get it, but we've got to flip this around, right? How do you get money to work for you? Imagine if your money worked as hard as you did. Right? Because I know you guys out there are busting your asses every day, holding down a really good job. You're great at what you do. You take care of your family. You take care of yourselves, your kids. and you work hard. I see you guys. I talk to you guys. I know how hard you work. Now imagine if your money could work that hard, because that's where we need to get to. You can take a break because now you've got your money working for you. And this is the thing, like the richest people in the world get their money to work for them, not the other way around. In fact, one of them was quoted saying, I'm too busy making money, I don't have time to work. Right? Think about that for a minute. How they relate money to work. Right? Have you factored in inflation? If you think you're going to live a comfortable lifestyle when you stop working on, say, $80,000, $90,000 a year, here's what I'm about to tell you. Number one, you haven't factored in inflation. Number two, you don't have freedom. You have compromise. Okay? Nobody can live a good lifestyle on $80,000 to $90,000 a year. You have to settle. You'll have to compromise. You'll have to take what you can get. But freedom and $80,000 to $90,000 a year don't match. Okay? You'll be restricted to what you can do on an $80,000 to $90,000 a year passive income. You just haven't worked it out yet. Okay? When you take inflation, we've got inflation sitting at 8% right now. That means the cost of living is increasing by 8% every year. Or your money is going backwards by 8% every year. So don't tell me you can live off $80,000, $90,000 a year, because when you say that, and people say that, they haven't done the maths. And if they have, they are compromising significantly. That's not a good quality of life, okay? By my definition and by most people's definition, okay? Because you don't have freedom, you have restrictions. You have to operate within a certain box because you can't go outside that box because you don't have the money to do so, right? So do the maths. Work out, hey, what do I want to have? What do I want to have when I stop working? And what's it going to cost me to have that? Okay, and we can help you with that, all right? It's actually not that difficult. You'll be required to look and confront a lot of things, but it's also a pretty cool process, right? Because you start to map out your future. And you know what? Let's design a great future. I don't know about you, but I wasn't put on this earth to settle or to have less than what I see coming. I want it all, and you should want it all. Okay, not because you're greedy, but because it's what you can do with money. Okay, no one's ever going to tell me I've got enough money. No one ever has the right to tell you that you've got enough money. Right? It's what you do with that money that's important. The people that you can help, the lives that you can change, the children, right, that you can assist, right? The quality of life that you can give you, your family, your parents, your loved ones, the experiences that you get to have, those moments in times, those memories that you get to make is what it's all about. It's actually not even about the money, all right? So plan that, right? Look ahead. Don't leave it to the last minute, all right? Because the longer you leave it, the harder it is to get to where you want to get to. So how do most people fund their retirement? Okay, so what are your options? Now some of this is going to be quite embarrassing. I still can't believe I have to make these statements, right? But this is what our government will lead you to believe, right? The pension. Now, if you're sitting there and you're looking forward to the pension, and that's your retirement plan, it's probably a good idea that you turn this off right now, because there's not much we can do to help you. And I say that in all sincerity, okay? Because again, you haven't done the maths. What's the pension in 2023? $26,000 for a single person in retirement and about $40,000 for a couple, okay? How does anybody get by on that amount of money when they stop working? Okay? The pension is not for you. The pension is not for me. Okay? It is not something that you should be looking forward to. Okay? And you know what? Who knows whether there'll even be a pension by the time you and I stop working. I'm not relying on it, and neither should you. Okay? Because I don't want that quality of lifestyle. Okay? Superannuation. Now listen, I love superannuation. It can be a very, very attractive investment vehicle. But again, a lot of Australians actually don't pay attention to their superannuation. And it's one of the most smartest investment vehicles that one can use to actually create wealth. But even if you've got $1 million, let's say you've got $1 million at the age of 65 in super, right? And you need $100,000 a year to live a good quality of life, right? Which I just said before, it's probably way too low. You've got 10 years worth of money before your money runs out. Then what? Right? What happens then? Okay? So you want to have assets that produce income, and you want to be living off that income. And if that income isn't enough, great, buy more assets, invest in more assets until they produce the desired income to give you that remarkable and that amazing quality of life that you deserve. All right, you don't want to live off your capital, or get into your capital. You want to live off the income. Right? It's the goose, right, and the golden goose and the eggs, right? You want to live off the eggs. You don't want, not the goose, right? So do the maths here. It's actually, you've got a chance at this. You really do, of making it if you can do the maths and confront the maths. Here as an example, here I am at the age of 45. I want to stop working at 65. I've got 20 years in me before I want to stop working, or I need to stop working. How much money do I need to have coming in at the age of 65 to be able to live this amazing lifestyle that I've just designed and created? That's the game, right? That's the game. And hopefully we get to live it without restriction, without financial restriction. So forget the pension, okay? Superannuation can be a very clever vehicle, but you need to also understand how superannuation works. And please don't just think you're going to live off the capital because you haven't thought of what happens when the super runs out. 3, investments, right? So collecting money while you sleep, right? And as per the example I gave, invest in income-producing assets that appreciate, where the assets appreciate in value over time, and you live off the cash flow. Okay, the ultimate vehicle. So, what are your investment options? Okay, let's look at it. Cash. Now, we all love cash. Okay, I think what we really want though is cash flow, not cash. Okay, so cash is what makes us all feel good. Let's have a look at how much money we have in the bank. Right, fixed interest, term deposits. You guys know the story. Keep your money in the bank, it goes backwards. So if you had $100 in the bank, or $100,000 in the bank, let's say, that's going to be going backwards by 8% due to inflation, right? And any interest you earn on that money is going to get taxed anyway. So don't use cash as an investment strategy, okay? Because you will be disappointed. The money that you had 20 years ago, as I'm sure you know, doesn't buy you anywhere near as much in today's society, all right? So inflation, the devaluing of money over time, okay, will eat into a lot of your cash. In fact, if you look at your money in the bank long enough, I promise you this, you look at it long enough, you'll actually see it disappear, okay? So whilst it may make you feel good and it may make you feel safe and it's very low risk, it's not really an investment strategy because you're not really earning any money on your money. Shares, okay? Now, again, a lot of people don't like shares because they don't understand shares. They don't understand how shares operate and what they're backed by. But shares can be very high risk, right? They can have very high or low returns. But again, it comes down to you understanding that asset class, that vehicle. Okay, but it's incredible. It's an incredible investment vehicle. I was just talking to a lady before who gave me a really cool story on her investment strategy that she uses for shares. She's doing remarkably well, all right? And then, of course, you've got real estate, okay? It's that favoured asset class that we as Australians and most people around the world, jump into because, you know what? It actually works, all right? It's easy to understand. It's real. We can touch it. We can feel it, hence the word real. Estate, right? We have mass on it. We can walk through it. We can touch it. We can punch it. We could break it, right? And we could lean against it. And it's traditionally low risk, right? Considered safe, and you can get some incredible returns. So here's my question to you guys out there: Get real estate to work for you. I got it that you've got your own home. That's great, but that ain't enough. And I don't care if you've got it fully paid off, because as long as you're living in it, it's not producing an income. You don't have safety, you don't have security, you just haven't figured it out yet. Okay? It's great that you've got your own home, and you know, well done if you've paid it off, or you're close to paying it off, or you're in that path of paying it off. But there is more that you need to do if you're looking for financial freedom. Owning your own home is not financial freedom, okay? Because it does not produce an income for you. I know a lot of people that have owned their own home and are working up to the age of 85 with their home fully paid off. Doesn't make sense. So what's the purpose behind real estate investing? Okay, let's just really break this down and look at it for what it really is. Right? Now, what do you want your family's future to look like? That's the question that you should be asking right now. What do you want your family's future to look like? Okay? Property itself is actually useless. It really is. Okay? Other than the home that you live in, real estate is useless. And I'll tell you why. Most people get too emotionally attached to real estate. Okay? This is why owning your own home can be such a dangerous thing, because we jump into it with emotion. We don't jump into it with logic. Because owning your own home makes absolutely no financial sense. Think about it. Every month it takes money out of your pocket. Does owning your own home ever put money in your pocket? Other than obviously increased equity, right? Increased value. Banks know this and they rope you in. They tie you up to a 25, 30-year loan, right? Which I'm sure you figured out. You end up paying more. You end up paying a hell of a lot more than what you actually borrowed. Okay? So other than your own home, you know, property is useless. But why do we invest? Why do we invest in property? Well, because it's about the money, right? We want the money that comes from property. You know, property is nothing more than a tool to attract finance. If you and I couldn't get a loan from a bank, debt, none of us would be investing in real estate. It's just a tool to attract finance from a lender, right? But it's nothing more than that. And it's not even about the money. And you're sitting there going, well, what is it about, Anthony? If it's not about property and it's not about money, what the hell is it about? Well, think about it. I come to you and I say, hey, I'm going to give you $10 million in the next hour. And you think, oh my God, this guy's either crazy or he's a god, right? But there's a catch. And the catch is that you can't spend that $10 million for the next 30 years. All of a sudden, that $10 million doesn't really have a lot of value. Now, in 30 years' time, it may have some value. But I've just shattered your dreams by telling you that here's $10 million and you can't spend it for another 30 or 40 years. It's like, oh my God, what's the point, right? So it's not about the money, right? What we're looking for here is freedom, right? That ability to live life on your terms, not my terms, not anyone else's terms, but your terms. You know, remember, think with this, right? Remember when you were a kid, right? You had no restrictions. You had no limits. You could just imagine and dream away, and there was no restrictions placed on you. That's where we kind of got to get back to, right? Because as we get older, things start to close in on us, right? We start to put restrictions on us. There's things that we can do and can't do, and things that we shouldn't do. And all of a sudden, that light starts to dim. And your dreams start to disappear and disappear and disappear. And you end up settling for whatever you can get. So why are we really doing this? We're doing this for freedom. It's not about property. You want to go overseas on a trip, right? You're 65, you want to go overseas on a trip. You go to your travel agent. You know, if people still use travel agents, I think everybody books online these days, right? You go book online and you go to your travel agent. I want 2 tickets to the Bahamas. right? My partner and I, we want to be there for 3 months uninterrupted. You know, travel agent's going to ask you for what? Money. They're not going to ask you for property. So you better make sure that you can pull money out of property, right? But is it really about the money? No, it's not. It's about experiences. You want to be in the Bahamas because you want to chill, you want to sit there, you want to have your drink, you want to experience that time with your partner, going on holidays, being in that moment, creating these beautiful memories with you and your family, those beautiful moments in time that nobody can replace or take away from you. That's what you want. It's not the money, and it's not real estate. Right? But we need to get to those experiences, to get to those memories, to create that life. It takes money. So now we're going backwards. It takes money. Guess what? You ain't getting to the Bahamas without money. So, okay, how do we get this money? How do we pull in this money? Here's a great idea. Investing. What do we invest in? Well, let's have a look. And we go back, right? That's where property comes into it. Right? So real estate investing should be able to pay for those experiences, for those memories, right? For those things that nobody can ever take away from you and that family, whether it be your holidays, whether it be putting your kids through private schools, good schools, paying for weddings, going to Disneyland, going on a boat cruise, whatever that is, whatever that life that you desire looks like, it needs money. It ain't going to pay for itself. Right? It's okay to have your dream board and to see it on TV, but that's not going to bring it to reality, right? It needs money. So what's a great way to make money? Well, we went through it, right? Right? Start your own business, share market, real estate. Okay, they're the 3 areas that most people do very well in. All right. So the purpose of investing in property is to set you up and your family up financially to be comfortable and happy. I'm going to say that again. The purpose of investing in property is to set you and your family up financially to be comfortable and happy. Spending quality time with each other, going away, doing whatever it is that you want to do without restriction. To have financial freedom that creates a good lifestyle with lots of enjoyment, lots of happiness, requires money. Okay, I'm sorry to break it to you guys, right? But you're going to be, you're going to have to compromise if you don't get your money right, okay? And one of the ways to get your money right is to start investing. So I get that there's a lot going on in the world right now, and you're probably sitting there going, Anthony, but how the hell do we do this given where interest rates are at right now and where inflation is and the cost of living? You know what? Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. If it's not something that you can do today, it's something that we can plan for moving forward. There are opportunities, there are ways to do things irrespective of what the market is doing. You know, the people that tell you now's not the right time because interest rates are too high and the market's going backwards are also the people that will tell you when the market's booming, hey, now's not the right time because, things are too expensive. Well, which one is it? They're either too cheap or they're too expensive. It's like freaking petrol, right? When do you go get petrol at the Bowser? When do you go fill up your car? When it's $4 a litre or $1.28 a litre? $1.28 a litre, right? But if you're waiting for it to drop further than $1.28 and go lower and lower and lower, good luck, because I don't know when it gets lower and I don't know when it's the peak either, all right? But you know what? You know what I do know? The time waits for no one. And, at the end of this webinar, you're going to be 45 minutes older. Okay? Tomorrow you're going to be another day older. Like, time waits for nobody. I don't know what you're waiting for. Right? Is there ever a good time? You know what? When you can afford to do so is the best time to buy real estate. When you can afford to do so. But don't just come to the conclusion that you can't afford to do so, right? Come and have a chat to us, because a lot of people just really do some really basic maths, and there's not a lot that they take. They don't take the other factors into consideration, because it's a lot more than just, pluses and minuses. All right. So look at how, even in 2023, have a look at how you can improve your financial situation. More money, less debt. Okay. That's what a lot of people are going to be driving for when they get older, okay, when they're looking to retire. How do I have more money and less debt? You know, how do we reduce the work that you have to do when you get older? Because if your money's not working for you, I promise you, you will work for money until you die. That's one thing I know for sure, okay? Because somebody on $150,000 a year salary, they're not going to drop from 150 grand a year to 40 grand pension. There's no way anyone's going to do that, right? But here lies the problem. What do you do at that point in time? Well, for a lot of us, we have to continue working. It doesn't make sense. Hey, let me tell you something. Nobody loves to work more than I do, believe me, okay? I mean, I've got an interesting definition of work, but is that all there is to life? Is that all there is to life? You start at the age of 20, 21, and you check out at the age of 85. It doesn't leave much time or space for anything else, does it? And believe me, I'm not against work, but there's something I love more than work, and that's freedom. Deciding if I want to work or not work on my terms, no one else's terms. Don't lose sight of the fact that real estate has always been a very, very sound, a very sure way to create wealth, okay? Irrespective of what you see right now in the media, what you see out there in society, real estate's always going to be a very, very sound asset class, okay? It will be for me, it will be for you, but you've got to take action, you've got to take that step of having a look at it and saying, hey, it's about time that I sit down and start planning for my financial future so I don't become one of those statistics when I get to the age of 65. Hope you guys enjoyed this webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it. Listen, it's information I love sharing because I know it works. It's worked for me. It's worked for thousands of our clients, okay? I want to see you, the viewer, do well, okay? I don't even care whether you do it with me or not. I mean, I'd love to help you guys, but I want to see you do well. I don't want to see you struggle. There are enough people out there struggling right now. If you think about it, if you're struggling right now financially, it's probably because of some decisions that you made earlier on. Right? If you had multiple income streams right now, right? And say you had your mortgage paid off, you had multiple income streams, would you really care about interest rates or escalating inflation? Okay? What we're going through right now, guys, it's going to happen again. The question is, are you going to be better prepared next time round? Or are you going to bury your head in the sand and watch this happen to you all over again sometime down the track? Thanks, guys. I hope you got a lot out of it. Look forward to speaking to you soon.